I see you were actually in San Diego, and I heard that the zoo there is phenomenal, and you were there for an 8x8 analyst summit. Tell us a little bit more about that and how was the zoo?
Yes. Yes, I was. I actually somewhat felt like I was caged in a zoo. I love the San Diego Zoo. Actually, I grew up in San Diego, so I've been going to the zoo my entire life. My family's a big supporter of the zoo. Um, and I will be doing a write up of my takeaways. And I was actually thinking about this. I wasn't feeling great this week, so I'm a little behind, but I was thinking about this as I was thinking about how to write this up. And I was thinking, 8 takeaways about 8x8. But then I decided it should be 7 takeaways because so much of it was under NDA. So there's a lot I can't talk about. Maybe it should be like 4 takeaways because there was a lot under NDA. But one thing I can talk about is their proactive outreach. And the proactive outreach it's really like, it's kind of this customer engagement with really personalized messaging campaigns.
Mhm.
It's kind of what you would expect. It's like SMS and WhatsApp capabilities that come natively in the contact center.
Mm.
But so if you think about like, you know, sales and marketing, promotional efforts, things like that, but then it's also emergency weather updates, closures, kind of time sensitive alerts, things like that. But here's one thing where I think this is a really, really important use case. And we had a bit of a discussion about this, and there's
Mhm.
kind of a I'm not sure if it's an argument, but there's still an open question about how this should be used. And in my opinion, so just recently with the AT&T outage, there were a lot of people who are calling into their call center and saying my phone's not working, or something's happening, or my internet's down, or whatever. Well, something like this proactive outreach, you could send a message to all customers, and then you cut down on thousands, if not millions, of calls coming into your contact center, and you free your agents to do more meaningful work, right? The argument
Right.
on the other side of that is, why do you want to alert customers to a problem if they don't know there's a problem? Well, eventually they're going to know there's a problem, right? Is my argument. Um, I talked to a contact center customer, not a customer of 8x8, but a contact center customer who
Mhm.
one wants to remain nameless because they do real money gambling. And they said that they do this very aggressively when they have outages of like their payment processor. So payment processing within real money gambling is actually real money gaming. All gambling is
Mhm.
real. Real money gaming is payment processing is very difficult, and it can get shut down for any number of reasons. And when they have a shutdown or some sort of problem, they actually alert their users with this proactive type of messaging because they don't want to flood their call centers with complaints. And they've had they have higher customer satisfaction when they do that, and they say, hey, give us 10 minutes and we'll be right back up and working, because of course they have the next platform that they can go to. Costs them a little bit
Sure.
more money, so that's kind of their, they move on to that, but it does cost them a little bit more money to process it. They're willing to take that hit to keep the customer, right? So rather
But the
than
right people are calling in, though. The right people instead of the wrong people. They can address the problems a little bit quicker instead of that proactive outreach is fantastic.
Right. So if they reach out to them and they say, "Hey, if you're trying to place a bet, give us 5 minutes." Those customers they're no longer mad because they're like, "I'm trying to place this bet and I'm pissed," right? And they might even say, "Here's a $5 credit for your next bet." You know what I mean? So I think this type of proactive outreach that 8x8 is doing is really, really smart. In Texas, where we have really random weather occurrences. It's like we're not
Mhm.
used to it. Um, Things like weather, all of these things. They also have, it's like one to many. They can also You can also send messages and receive messages back. So it's not just those
Mhm.
messages where do not reply. So a customer can actually respond. And then that gets
Mhm.
routed to an agent and they can get answers back. So this is one of the things that I actually can, like I said, there are lots of things under NDA, but one of the things that I learned about 8x8 at the Analyst Summit, and I think this is one of the things that you can really only get at an in-person event, is that 8x8, they always talk about customer obsession.
Mhm.
And I met with some of their customers, and I do think that they are customer obsessed, and I can tell that by talking to their customers. But where I think customer obsession starts with is employees. I think that customer
Very
experience
well said.
starts with employee experience. And what I saw from the 8x8 team is their employee experience, their culture is what makes them able to be customer obsessed. Like their culture as a company is, you can feel it. You can really see how they work together, how they communicate with one another, how they talk about each other.
Mhm.
And again, it's just something I think you can see in person. It, maybe this is a bad comparison because they are somewhat of a competitor, but I got that same feeling with Avaya. Their
Mhm.
CEO Alan Masrick he is culture obsessed, and you feel it when you're with them. And we always talk about going to be with a company in person for these analyst events. Sometimes it's hard because it's kind of takes us away from regular work, but it is so important to get that in-person time with the executives,
Mhm.
with their customers, with just that one-on-one time, that in group time. And I think for me, it showed me that how they become customer obsessed is sort of that employee. It starts with the employees, and I think
It really does.
that part was really important to me to learn from them. There's a lot more that I
It's
could talk about, but
interesting.
then I would have nothing to write about. So I'll wait for that.
Well, the thing is, when you start with the employees, it gives them the autonomy to have their own success from that starting point. If they don't want to have success, then they won't be able to emulate that to the customers. So the goal is to see that at the beginning, which is what you're talking about. Your actual employees are your biggest assets,
Right.
and they're the front line to the customers. And by having what you just said, gives the customer satisfaction at the level that you're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that culture is driven by the top. They have a new CEO, Sam Wilson. He's ex-military. I tend to think that I have a brother who's in the military. Well, you live in a military town. Um, I feel like there's something about leaders who have served in the military that kind of create that culture. I may be wrong and I may be biased, but um, I really thought that there was a neat culture among that team.